Thanks for listening to our podcast, Living Life with the Rogers. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Kira, and this is a lifestyle podcast where we talk about hashtag all the things and share our unpopular opinions. Tune in.
Hello, everybody. We are back.
We're back.
We're back, baby. We are in season 3, which is kind of wild. Episode 1.
I'm still confused, though, because season 2 only had 9 episodes. Don't you have to have 10 episodes to officially complete a season?
Well, I'm gonna check with the podcast crew, our management staff, which is myself, and we'll get back to you on that. I mean, everybody seems to get into podcasting and intends the golden rule. We did 9 and we limped to the finish partially because you were morbidly pregnant.
No, I think I had a baby when we finished.
No, oh yeah, we did. The last couple episodes, you had our 4th. And we did 9, so pat ourselves on the back. We did it.
Good enough for government work.
Yeah, so let's season 3. We make the rules. It's season 3, whether you like it or not, folks.
Well, also we got kicked out of our recording studio because our recording studio, which was also our closet, is now Delaney's room because we're running out of space. So now we're in the corner of our basement and we're making it work.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see over the course of time where we're going to land. Right now we're in the homeschool room / basement. Maybe we'll be in the utility room for season 4. I mean, join us for the adventure.
It's a revolving studio.
All right, well, I'm kind of excited about this topic today. And obviously, we're going to steal the name from Tay Swift. Kira is a self-proclaimed Swiftie, which I've heard there's only about 100 Swifties in the world, so there's not many of them. We have one here, and so it's such a privilege and honor to have you on our show. You want to give us the title of today?
Well, am I going to get copyright infringement?
Yeah, maybe we have to. I mean, well, I'll check with my management again, but yeah, maybe we have to reference and say this is from Taylor Swift.
Yeah, so as long as you give her credit, then you don't get copyright issues.
Yeah, nothing that we say here is an original thought.
True. Well, smallest man that ever lived. Only the greatest song on her new album, The Tortured Poets Department.
I got an idea. Why don't you just keep whispering quiet? It's it lulls people to sleep. You're it's from the torture. And they're what?
I think that song has the greatest bridge she's ever written. I'm going to go on the record and say that. It is so epic. And I heard that Swifties were marching to that song outside of her stadiums during the Eras tour. A group of them would get together and they would march and sing the bridge from the song. And it's so good.
Cool. Okay. So today's about, we're going to get into a little everything, narcissism, issues
just light topics per usual.
We love season 3, episode 1. We're just going to keep it light. So starting off, the one thing that we were kind of noticing and a lot of people are talking about, Zach Bryan and Brianna, we call her Chickenfry / La Paglia. Hopefully I do that right. Or
I think you botched
La Paglia?
that.
La Paglia?
La Paglia.
La Paglia.
I don't even know. I'm just going to go with it. I don't even know if that's how you say it.
Yeah, you just made me feel... Talk about narcissism. No, I'm just kidding. So you just made me feel bad, and I might have nailed it. Who knows? So we're going to kind of dig into what's going on. Obviously, a lot of people listen.
What a sad day for ZB, because I was really jamming to his music this summer.
Yeah.
Why do all the good ones have to go and screw it up?
So let's talk about why. So we've decided to just temporarily, we'll see how everything kind of sheds light and what comes out. We're temporarily banning ZB on Spotify.
He's
Canceled in the Rogers household. I know it's going to break his bank just having us
not listen to. I even unfollowed him on Spotify. Okay.
Oh, wait. I didn't realize.
You can unfollow people on Spotify.
Wow. All right. So he's blocked. So that's official. That's a huge win for the Rogers. Huge loss for ZB. So lots going out there with Dave Portnoy and a lot of other people talking about what she experienced last year with him. And that kind of hits home for me. I've definitely, obviously in our marriage showed a little bit of narcissism. And it's hard because when you're in it, that would just seem so normal to you. But then to people that are healthy and have a great mindset, the abuse that it delivers, that a narcissistic person gives to somebody it's heavy and it's a heavy weight. And their story is they were only together for a year, and I'm sure for her it felt like 5 years.
Well, it's hard too because a lot of the people that end up being victims. I don't want to say like girls, because it happens to men too. It's not, it's not one gender or the other. But a lot of times it's sad because the victims end up being people that like are super just like loving and see the best in people. Like they're super optimistic and they assume the best. And so they like go in thinking like, yeah, of course, like this person is good. Like, of course I'm going to be treated in a respectful way. You don't ever want to think the worst of somebody. And so then like, because I've done that in the past, because I tend to look on the more optimistic side and give people the benefit of the doubt. And so you're just assuming the best. And then like, you're trying to talk yourself into like, no, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, they're still good. Like, so it's sad. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, like, shoot, no, this is a cycle that I'm stuck in. But from the get-go, you don't just assume that people are bad or that they are going to, abuse you. Like, you don't ever go in thinking that. I think that's like just something to note. But.
Well, how could you ever open yourself to love or a relationship if you're just assuming the worst in everything? So you kind of have to, test the waters, get to know somebody. But here's a tricky thing with narcissism is it starts off, the person's charismatic usually. And so they start off very, everybody loves them, right? I mean, they're a lovable person. If you have a short 5-minute conversation, if you interact with them with, for a short amount of time, I mean, that person's awesome. You would have a rave review, right? I would Yelp review you and give you 5 stars. So the initial, interactions are always awesome. Or I shouldn't say always, but for the majority, right? And I also learned, obviously there's certain depths to narcissism. There's very minor issues, and then it goes as far as being diagnosed with NPD, which is that narcissism personality disorder. And so there's a spectrum. And so, people fall throughout different areas on that. I kind of looked up this info because I thought it was kind of, me.
Webster, we're back to Webster.
No, we're not back to Webster. We're
WebsterDictionary.com.
Yeah, and this came off Googles.com, I think, if you heard of that before. So, there's a couple traits of NPD, which is lack of empathy, exaggerating achievements and talents, fantasizing about unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, or believing that they are special and can only be understood by other special or high status people. So
those are like your red flags, if you will, right? Like
yeah,
you're saying, like those are like things that like, hey, if you notice any of these things in someone, that it's a problem.
Correct. And so that's high on the spectrum. When you're, if somebody's diagnosed with NPD at this point, it's a big deal. And so if for somebody who has a minor version of this, you'll see hints of these traits. For somebody that's major in it, I mean, never any empathy, never any apologies, never, any remorse.
Well, that's what's crazy. Like a lot of the things that she was saying, Brianna was saying about ZB, we ain't even going to say his name around these parts. Is that the way he talked to other people? Like it was always like constantly like putting other people down and making himself be greater. It's like that obsession with self, I think, is one of the biggest red flags when it comes to a narcissist. Is like will do anything they can just to make themselves seem like they are the shiz.
Yeah. And as I reflected on their story, I've kind of sat and I had to be humble myself and realize like, man, I definitely had this. I mean, we can have a whole podcast about that, about early in our marriage. Just, I couldn't take blame for anything. I couldn't just admit that it was my fault because there was a lack of maturity. There was a lack of, I thought if I admitted fault, I was a failure and that was going to define me. And so I always made sure it was somebody else's fault. So I've definitely had some traits of this for sure.
Lack of accountability, I think, is another big one. If you notice, like someone can never apologize for things that they do wrong. Red flag.
Correct. And so other people have brought it to light. My relationship with God is, that's done the most service to me because it's brought, God's disciplined me and set me straight. And you set me straight. And so I thank God he's gotten a hold of me and he can work on this. But I think the situation with ZB and Brianna is like, this is how nasty you can get. And it's 1 year. And there's people with family members. There's people in relationships that, I mean, they hang on to the fact that these people are still charismatic. And there's this like aura about them that's like a magnetic drawing that brings you in. Then when you go through the dark times, you still rely on why you fell in love, on that charismatic personality, and it's hard to let go.
Yeah, you'll focus on the good too. Like I feel like someone will give you like one little like scrap of goodness and you're like, oh, see, it's still fine. And then you ignore like the 10 other, things that happened that were horrible. It's like you'll just have these little scraps and you'll just hang on to that as your hope for that this person's going to change or do better or it's going to be different. So that's another hard thing is like, that's kind of what you were speaking to is like you'll kind of put on the blinders to all of the horrible things that are happening because you just hang on to the glimmers of good.
Correct. Yeah, 1,000%. And the one trait we kind of picked up on as, we were both listening to that podcast and hearing more, from her side. Obviously, we're kind of waiting to see, there's always two sides of the story. But man, is her side really telling. And, as far as potentially having an NDA, with $12 million, I mean, this is craziness. But the one trait we kind of picked up on is, unprocessed trauma. And, you hear, like, at least from what we're aware of with ZB, okay, you're in the military. It seems like he just wants to spend some time alone. I don't know how his upbringing was. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, he said something about his mom. Like, I think his mom's passed away, and he said something about, going to her site and wanting to tell her something, but then he was like, oh, she would have never showed up anyway. So he's alluding to childhood trauma and then military, what is that, PTSD?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's even said like, oh, he's dealing with stuff like that. And again, that she would use that to justify staying is, well, he needs me. He's struggling. He's working through some things. But again, it's like, people are dealing with things. Horrible things happen to people. Like I'm not, I feel sorry for him in that sense that he's had some things happen to him that are hard and are causing him, emotional instability. But at the end of the day, that person has to take responsibility for what happened to them and do everything that they can to heal from that trauma so that it's not bleeding out onto others, because it's never an excuse to treat somebody that horribly. It's just not.
Well, and the reality is everybody has some sort of trauma, right? So if you're on this side of the earth, you're going to experience something. And whether it's through childhood, whether it's through your jobs, relationships, just stepping out the front door, trauma could be right around the corner. And so I think the difference is so it makes a lot of people are like, oh, I would never be narcissistic. Oh, that's never been me. Well, part of the denial could be like, check yourself in the mirror. Maybe your denial is a little bit of that, is not being open to, vulnerability, being open to having a community of guys or ladies that will challenge you. And so you could be showing some signs secretively, but the best way to hit that on the head is that unprocessed trauma. Have you taken any time, we did this last night. You brought up a good question. Like, think about the tough seasons of life.
Hardest moments of your life.
Yeah, the hardest moments of your life, and can you visualize it? And we've spent
and I think a good way to know is like, does it still hurt? When you think of those hard moments in your life, like, are you still actively like, is your heart still actively like aching? That sounds so emo.
Oh, that was good.
But it's like, can you look on it and be like, wow, that was hard, but I see how God brought me through that. I see how I've grown. I see how I've changed. I can appreciate that season. Or is it just still feel like you're living in that moment and the pain is like fresh and raw? And it's like, that'll tell you right there, you still have some healing to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you hit the nail on the head there, is take the time to process. And we had this conversation as well. We live in an era, I mean, the past generation, it was like,
brush it under the rug.
A couple generations before us, it was definitely sweep everything under the rug, rub dirt on it. That was kind of the motto. And it wasn't cool. Like if you had a therapist, they were like, man, what's wrong with you?
You belong in a psych ward if you have a therapist.
Oh, like what's wrong with you?
And now it's like, if you don't have a therapist, it's like a red flag. It's like, wait, you don't go to therapy? What's wrong? Like,
yeah. And I could literally like 2 clicks of an app and I can be into a therapy session nowadays. So, but here's what's interesting is, so our generation, we have all this access, but you see a lot of people in denial and they don't take advantage of it, right? Or they get into it, but they can't like show any growth, can't take that. They might take 1 or 2 steps and they go right back into that pit. It's a trap.
Yeah, I mean, a therapist can tell you all the right things to do, but at the end of the day, you have to put in the work and you have to go and get quiet and deal with yourself and deal with your pain. So it's like if you're going to the therapist, but you're not taking what they're saying and putting into action, then you're not going to be any better off than when you started. So,
yep. So that's kind of hard. So to me, a huge step though is just start going back to that trauma, even just getting that off your chest and to a friend, a Bible study, counselor, anybody really. And then from there, then you can start. I mean, this is where things, I feel like it needs to go to another level. And I think the difference that believers have is we have a powerful God that we can go to. And that God wants to take all over. He was there through our lows. He's there, in our highs. And he wants to, be there with us. And so I think having the special power of the Holy Spirit and God, it's all fancy ways of basically saying we have the creator of this earth that is there for you. He's your ultimate counselor. So I do believe in therapy. I've been in counseling. And it's the greatest thing ever. And my homework when I got home from the counseling session was to sit with God, talk to those other people. Like there was more to it than just going to these sessions, talking. Okay, I got it off my chest. Well, that's a huge, huge step.
Well, and sometimes you have to have conversations with other people as a part of your healing too. So that could be another piece of it. So yeah, there's always like work to be done. Like a therapist is really good at asking the right questions to kind of get it all out. Yes. And really see like, okay, where is these areas? Like maybe you don't even realize something's bothering you, but they're good at asking the right questions to figure that out. But then, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but now you're going to have to go take charge of this healing.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the start of the work in the therapy. And then we go from there. But that's the issue is when you deal with narcissistic people and we're hearing this story and we're making some assumptions. We haven't heard both sides, but you realize there's no change. Like how long do you have to wait and be in it till change? And
yeah, what is it? That's an interesting question because it's like, how many chances do you give someone? Because there's grace. Grace comes in here. Nobody's perfect. So if you're in a committed relationship, you're going to have some forgiveness and grace for your partner because they're going to screw up. But it's like, when does that go too far? So it's like, how many chances does somebody get? And it's like, in my head, it's like 1, 2 at the most, and it's done.
Is it like the old school 3 strikes you're out of the
sort
old
of
ball game?
I don't even know if it should get to 3 though. It's like, okay, you screw up once, let me give you another chance, right? Then you screw up again. Okay, well now it's becoming a pattern, right? Because it's like that first time was like your get out of jail free card. It was like, I'm going to give you the opportunity to prove to me that you want to change and you want to grow and you're not going to make this mistake again. But it's like once it becomes that second time for me, I don't even know if I could get to 3, but I mean, that's to each their own.
Not you, Kira.
To
Come
each
on.
their own.
Give yourself some credit.
It's like, then that's a pattern. That's somebody showing. I was talking about this last night. I was like, I love the quote, if they want to, they would, because it's like, that's somebody showing that they really don't want to change. They're just interested in continuing to live in their trauma and their pain. And it's like, how are their behaviors ever going to change?
Yeah. And so I've read some books from Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she's big on like, you change your way of thinking. There's pathways in your brain that are set up. So when you're a narcissist, your pathways are just continuing in that cycle. So to forge a new path, you need to change those pathways, and you change those pathways by creating new discipline habits. So I'll speak to the Christian community. There's a lot of people that are just, oh, you just give everything to God. Oh, you give it all to God. You give it to God. And it's like, that's great. But then the real work begins because you give it to God. And usually what God does, he goes right back to you and goes, okay, I've given you all the resources. Now it's your time to do the work. And that's what we're going back to the homework of it all. And so there's a lot of Christians that are like, oh, God's just going to heal. And no, not if you're just sitting there. You have to do something. So another book I read was Atomic Habits. It talked about setting small habits. So if you want to learn how to play the guitar, sit the guitar somewhere you can see it. Start by just playing for like a minute. Do a minute a day. Then go to 2 minutes. Then go to 5 minutes. Go to 10 minutes. That same discipline should be in the walk of healing from narcissism or healing from any trauma. Let's start with baby steps. Let's get it out in the open. Then from there, let's do our homework. Anytime you feel like you're just angry or you want to snap, well, take a deep breath. Well, let's work on breathing techniques. Like therapists will walk you through these techniques, walk you through this homework, and take baby steps on changing the course. Because that's the huge thing is a lot of these stories, it just always is this way, and they don't want to change. And there's power in healing and change in God, but God can do it all. He can force us, but he loves us so much. He gives us free will to live in that sin. Right.
Yeah. Another story it's a movie. I don't know if it's based off of a true story, but we rewatched It Ends With Us last night. I had seen it in theaters, and then I was like, Kim, you need to watch this because it's so good. I read that book in like 3 days. It's Colleen Hoover. But
you got a lot of her books, don't you?
Yeah. I like a lot of her books. But I really appreciated the way that they portrayed abuse in that movie, because I feel like they were showing a couple things. They were showing how like it can be anyone that can be an abuser. Like I think we used to think it was only like the lower class or certain types of people. And it's like, no, like it could be a successful neurosurgeon that is an abuser. And again, because he had trauma in his childhood that he hadn't healed from. And so it was manifesting itself in narcissism and abuse. And also that like it showed that she like had a hard time breaking, getting out of the relationship because she loved him. And I think that's like so sad is like, you fall in love with someone and you think that they are going to take care of you and your heart. And then when they don't, it's like, but I love this person. And it's such a hard thing to get out of. But I mean, at the end of the day is like, you just have to know that if someone does truly love you, like you may love them and you may be treating them the right way and like, good for you. Like you're a good partner. But at the end of the day, if someone feels that same way about you, they will not treat you like that. They just won't. Like there's just no other way to say it than like, you deserve more than that. And someone who truly loves you just isn't going to treat you that way.
There's not a habitual pattern. Like we've been married 12 years. I've hit some lows. You've hit some lows. During those low seasons, you could say like, yeah, were we treating the other person the best?
But there's a boundary. Yeah. And you were talking about that last night. Like when you cross that boundary, it's like, yikes. I don't know if you can come back from that.
Well, we're talking about in that point, you're talking about deep narcissism to the point where like when we're talking about heavy verbal abuse, heavy emotional abuse, then it goes into physical. And it's like, even through our lows, those lines just, you can't cross those. Yeah. But I'm just speaking to like in general of like, a marriage, like you're going to have ups and downs, but we're talking about people that habitually like this is, you've exemplified these characteristics for years. And the reason why people fall in love with those kind of people, again, they're charismatic, they're so fun-loving, they're so easygoing. Yeah. They forge that love bond. Then when they're in it deep, then the narcissistic traits come in and take over. So it's a trap, that's for sure. So
her bravery at the end, like she asked her mom, like, why did you never leave? And she's like, it would have been harder to leave. And I'm sure a lot of women feel that way, men feel that way. And it's like showing that she was able to make that hard decision for her child and leave. And, it's a movie. I get it. But it's never an answer to stay. There's always something you can do once you leave.
I think it's a good reminder for, other women. And I would say it even happens to men too. Yeah. But like to have that brotherhood, have that sisterhood of people that are seeing it and can help you with it. Cause it must feel very lonely to be in that situation, to feel like, oh, I love this person, but I know that they're not treating me right. I feel it, but you're justifying. And then when you have that sisterhood, the brotherhood, you have that time with the Lord, quiet time, like they're going to set you straight. They're going to let you know, like, you deserve better. You know better, I love that Brianna's been like, you have me. If you have nobody, you have me. I'm like, I love that. And I love that increase in awareness for sure. I mean, and that's what, that was our point of this. And, to kind of carry the momentum of just being aware that there's a ton of narcissism out there. There's different levels, different ranges. And if somebody's going to stay, like if I stayed that way, we wouldn't still be together.
Well, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be a brother. It could be a parent. It could be a spouse. Like it happens in all different types of relationships. And there's just never a reason to be in that type of relationship. And can I see my favorite word in here?
Hey,
what do we need to do? We need to put up a You literally don't know.
It's boundary.
Yes,
I know
my
what it
favorite
is.
word.
Yeah. All right. So that leads us to our unpopular opinion segment. So would you like to start us out?
Mine's gonna maybe sound a little harsh. It's my MO.
Again, no. Come on, that's a knee slapper. No.
But it's true. So mine is, you are not responsible for what happens to you. You are never responsible. You don't ever deserve your trauma or horrible things that have happened to you. But you are responsible for healing from your trauma. Meaning you can't control what happens to you a lot of times. You know, unspeakable things happen, but you are in control of your future and putting yourself in different situations and doing the healing so that you don't continue to bleed on people that you love around you.
Amen. That's beautiful. Well, we've had this conversation so many times. A lot of people think, oh, that was my trauma. That was my hurt. That was my pain. And they don't realize they are constantly bleeding out to other people. They think that it's that old mentality. Oh, it's my problem. That's just my issue. That's deep in my heart. And, you don't have to worry about that. Well, guess what? I mean, not only do other people worry about it, they're put in the situation. They're feeling the abuse. They're feeling the after effects. And that's exactly, the opposite of what God wants. God wants that transformation, that healing, so that something that was meant to destroy you would then be something that can create change, create hope, and allow other people to realize they can be freed from it too. So it's powerful what you said.
All right. What's your unpopular opinion?
Mine is, unpopular opinion for Cameron is, if undealt, God will hand you over to your narcissistic ways and you'll constantly live life dissatisfied. And so it's speaking to those with the narcissistic.
What do you mean if undealt? If trauma, or what do you think?
No, so for a narcissist, if you continue those patterns, I think you're just going to be left in them. And not only are you going to be left in them, they get deeper and deeper and deeper. And you think you're gaining power. You think you're gaining, we said the fourth trait was believing that you're special, that you can only be understood by those of high status. You think you're superior. And imagine it's going to be the loneliest life that you ever live if you continue in those patterns, because you will be isolated. I think
you lose people. Yeah.
People are catching on to this, that, okay, if you have those traits, have those patterns, they're only going to live with it for so long before they just had enough, and you'll be alone in that. And so to that, I believe narcissism really comes from undealt trauma. So if you're not processing that, not dealing with that, not putting the work, you're left to your own demise. And even God will give us free will and go, look, I want you to heal. I'm here for you. I'm knocking at the door. I'm ready to answer the call. But if you're not willing to to receive that call, then he's going to leave you to your ways. And I mean, talk about the most dissatisfying life. I think where my heart comes from is when I heard the story of, ZB and Brianna. I was like, oh, I feel so sorry for her. Like, I hope he gets what's coming to him. But at the same time, he's already getting what's coming. That's my point.
He's in pain too. So it's
and that's the thing is, it's sad really, because he's in pain. He's living with undealt trauma. And I mean, it's going to be a lonely life. It's going to be a sad, lonely. You can reach the pinnacle of success, have all the millions of dollars, have the homes, have everything. If you don't have relationships with people, that's the richest blessing we could have, is having families, friends, spouses. That's
another telltale sign of a narcissist too, is you can't keep relationships. Like, people don't want to stick around. It's like, well, it's probably not what you said.
Goodness gracious. Well, that's our episode of The Smallest Man That Ever Lived. # thank you, Tay Swift.
Did you sleep with a gun
my goodness.
our bed? Go listen to the song. It's so good.
Follow Kira's private channel where she sings every single song with interpretive dance of Taylor Swift.
If you ever need a little therapy sesh, go ahead and run yourself a shower and sing the bridge of The Smallest Man That Ever Lived in the shower. Scream it. And you'll feel much better.
And if you do, I guess share your experience with us and living life with the Rogers family.
You deserve prison, but you won't get time. You'll slide into inboxes and slip through the bars.
I'm just seeing how far this goes. Keep going.
I'm blanking.
Oh my goodness, great. All right, we'll post the lyrics for you so that way if you want to have your shower session. Now, the only thing I wouldn't say is try not to take your phone in the shower. You would probably destroy
Yeah,
it.
you can prop it up on the top of the...
Do you print it and then laminate it?
No, you have to memorize it first, and then you can scream yell it.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We're so excited to be back and have this discussion, and we look forward to the next one.
So yeah.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Living Life with the Rogers. You can find us on Instagram at Living Life with the Rogers Family. We love to post on there and hear from our followers.
If you would like to hear future episodes, make sure to follow or subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode is released. See ya.